The truth will either set you free or it will kill you. I had this idea of speaking about a topic that definitely would be a little bit controversial, but I wanted to see where people's heads reside on the matter at hand because I'm genuinely curious. I'm going to give two examples of these things, but I think the first example that I'm going to give should kind of give you an idea of what I'm trying to get at. Let's say there's two individual people. Let's call the first group of people the blue people, and then the second group of people the red people. Now, the blue and the red people at one point lived in harmony, and things were well, things were fine, until the red people had decided that they no longer wanted to deal with the blue people and their way of living. And they felt like the things that they had, they could just take for themselves. So the red people decided to wage war on the blue people. And when they waged war, they fought them endlessly, ruthlessly, until they conquered them and they beat them. Now, the blue people tried their best, but they weren't victorious. The red people now understand that this is history that is going to go down to their descendants and those descendants. And so they understand that they're going to need to put it into writing, contextualize it so that these people that come after them will know that it was the red people who were the winners. But you have to understand something. In war, things are not always as they seem. Now, they don't want to show that they had greed. They don't want to show to people that it was them who started the war. So what they decide to do is formulate the idea that the blue people started the war, that it was the blue people that wanted to take everything, that the blue people were savages, that they were unclean, and they weren't living with the ways that were right, like the red people. So the red people decided that all they could decide to do was defend themselves, to keep themselves safe. And the only way to keep themselves safe was to annihilate the blue people. And that's what they decide to put down as their history, as to why they went to war with the blue people. And so later on, hundreds of years later as they passed, the blue people and the red people, being of the same people, but just different colors, finally got to understanding as to what happened back then. They're like, oh wow, so we used to live in peace, but then the blue people had decided we don't want peace.
I don't want peace. I want problems always.
We don't want to live in the ways of harmony like we once did. We want everything. And so now, when you look at history and you look at the way that the blue people are living, they're seen below the red people. They're seen as the violent ones, the ones who weren't in their right mind. But the issue with that is that it wasn't like that at all. It was the red people that didn't want to live that way, that didn't want to live in harmony. They were the ones that wanted everything. But the world knows only one story, one part of his story. Now, the second example that I'm going to give is one that should be familiar to a lot of philosophers out there. So if you study philosophy and you hear this story, then you may be able to relate it to another. There's a man or a group of people who are living on the ground, and there's a source of light that they see shadows emanating from the walls. That source of light, for a story's sake, as we know it, is fire. But for them, all they know it as is a source of light. Now there's a person behind said wall that is covering that source of light, dividing that light and the people. And it's manipulating its fingers and certain objects to make those shadows appear as gods, beings of destruction and power, controlling a group of people so that they would never question anything that comes from where they are, why they're there, or what source of light is creating such images and imagery. All they know is the cave that they're dwelling in. Finally, one person in the mass of people that thinks to themselves, you know what? There must be more to this. There must be more to these shadows and this light that we see every single day. So they decide to break free, they decide to go out and find a way to that source of light. They search and they search and they search, and then finally, instead of finding the source of light, they find themselves outside of the cave. And outside of that cave, they see a blue sky, flying objects, flying animals, tall, gentle giants of brown and green, swinging in the wind and in the air, and a big ball of illuminating fire, warming everything in its surrounding. They're going to think to themselves, I have to tell everybody else. We've been deceived. There is so much more. So they go back and they tell the masses about everything. And you know what they do? They look at that person with a haze over their eyes, as if everything that they're talking about is complete and utter nonsense. Cognitive dissonance. There are truths in this world that are hidden behind closed doors. And the reason they're hidden behind closed doors is because if we truly understood why we were here and what really happened in our past, the very fabric of our reality would be disrupted. Everything that was built into its structure of how it is now would crumble, it would fall. And there's certain powers that be that don't want that to happen. So that's what I'm going to leave you guys with. I'm going to leave you guys with that to think about because I don't want to go too deep into it. It was just a way to spark and ignite a little bit of thought, a little bit of deeper thinking, to think about things in a way that isn't so black and white, to start thinking that maybe I should look at the gray just a little bit because there might be something hidden there that I haven't really been able to see.